Hello.
Good afternoon, Chair Harrington. You're welcome to kick off the meeting.
Yeah, I'd love to call the meeting to order. If we could start with the first item here of roll call.
We'll start with, I'll go from my left to right. So starting with Committee Member John Sherm.
Present.
Nicholas Markman.
Present.
Chair Charlie Harrington.
Present.
Committee Member Wayne Stacey. Committee Member Marika Bergsund. Present. And Council Liaison Jane Cooper.
Present.
And in the staff, we have myself, Anthony Boyd, Public Works Director, and Christina Cook, Administrative Analyst.
Great. Let's move on to item 2, approving the minutes from November 6th and the December 4th, 2024 meetings. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve the both meeting minutes.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. I'm going to move on to item 3 then. So comments from me. Awesome. Been waiting for this. No, just kidding. So thanks. It's really great to see everybody. It's nice to have the full force present today. Got a nice agenda. Speaking of the agenda, I'd like to just shift the order of a few things, if that's all right with everybody. So I want to move item number 8 to be the first item. So it'll go above 5. That's the item around the drinking fountain. And then there's a sub-bullet here, discussion of lane signage. This was something that will be coming out of the lane subcommittee. I'm going to just strike that for this meeting, and I'd rather have a little bit more time for the lanes committee to come back with a more clear proposal. So if folks don't mind crossing off item number B under 5. Okay, fantastic. One thing I wanted to do, Wayne, in our last meeting, we had everyone sort of introduce themselves to the committee and just mention like your history with Belvedere and why you volunteered to be part of this volunteer board for Belvedere Parks. If you wanted to just share a couple thoughts with the crew here.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Somewhere in my mind, I think I already had this discussion, but it might have been during the interview. So,
yes, it did. It was where we weren't present.
Well, you should have been.
Yeah. Okay, so that ends my comments. And Wayne, I'll turn it over to you.
So my background's been here coming up 10 years in Belvedere. Before that, I spent 17 years in Boulder, Colorado. In Boulder, famous for moving to do open space work, moving for their outdoor space back in the 60s, and transformed an entire community. Got to see what worked, what didn't work. It was just fantastic. And I also saw that it was done by volunteers. Small community, a little bigger than Belvedere, but all volunteers through the years. And it made me realize that those kind of things don't happen unless people put in time, and you can't just turn it over to others. And so I could see around Belvedere all the pieces that have been invested through the last 100 years, and wanted to be part of it, and wanted to kind of do my part to invest for the next 100.
Amazing. Well, we're happy to have you on board. I know we haven't had a meeting here since December, but since then we presented to City Council about the priorities coming out of the Parks, Open Spaces and Lanes Committee. I think everyone can kind of remember that we winnowed those down to really 2 things, and we're going to have an update on each of those today, the Lanes Subcommittee and the Artist View Project. So I'd like to end my comments. Great. And then we can move on to item number 4 here, which is a report from the Public Works Director, Tony Boyd.
Thank you, Chair Harrington. And I will share my screen because I have a couple of pictures to go with my report. Sorry, bear with me for 1 second here.
I wore layers.
All right. So starting with an announcement that Concerts in the Park is happening this Sunday, June 15th at 4 p.m. Bring the family to Belvedere Community Park on Sunday, June the 15th at 4 p.m. to sing and dance along with the Sun Kings, the Bay Area's favorite Beatles tribute band. This energetic group kicks off our 28th year of free summer concerts for the Belvedere community. So come join the fun. And I'm going to segue from that to another announcement about Community Park, which is that it becomes a very popular place in summer. And I'd like to clarify some of the usage rules of the park for general use. Community Park is open to any group or individual to enjoy on a first-come, first-served basis, including for children's birthday parties. However, if your event is open to the public, or you plan to utilize special equipment or services such as tents, pony rides, animal programs, music, food carts, or barbecues, you must obtain a special event permit from our Public Works Department. And that can be found online. Please note that bounce machines, generators, amplified music are prohibited unless they're part of an event approved by the Public Works Department and the city manager. Events will be closed down by our police department if the organizer doesn't have an appropriate permit or uses prohibited equipment. In order to improve communication and promote good, I guess, neighborly conduct, the city will be moving the existing bulletin board from its current location adjacent to the basketball courts to one closer to the main playground entrance, where visibility will be improved. In addition, we will be exploring the idea of separating the row of picnic tables under the redwood trees into a more dispersed pattern of tables. The idea being that several separate tables would be more inviting to several groups, rather than a single large table unit, which may appear to facilitate a single large gathering. Moving on to
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Or should I wait to the end?
Probably better to wait to the
Okay.
end, because then I can kind of run through everything and take all questions at the same time, if you can hold on to it. Moving on to city maintenance, spring is over and all the weed work that started in the landscapes is pretty much done, although they are always coming back with irrigation. And we're into fire season. So vegetation work is coming up with trimming on the sides of the roads and along the edges of the parks. We're running the annual vegetation pickup program, and we have a picture for that. And this runs every Tuesday through the month of June. Our crew will be going around every Tuesday to pick up piles of debris that anybody in Belvedere is welcome to leave on their frontage outside of their house. It needs to be back from the curb, and it needs to be less than 1 cubic yard, and it has to only be vegetative material less than 4 inches in diameter. Moving on to trees, an update on our tree management. We're exploring the possibility of obtaining a tree management plan for city trees in parks and medians. This would prescribe annual maintenance pruning work for city trees in a consistent manner, and I hope to have more at the next meeting. Also have an update on the historical tree, just around the corner from where we are right now. Following guidelines provided by UC Extension specialist Stephen Swain, we have installed irrigation at the base of the tree. We've placed mulch around the roots and the base. And in the spring, we pinched back the blooms, which is needed, he said, because of this tree, this is a pear tree, which is in close proximity to the pear trees in the parking lot down here at the community center, which suffer from fire blight. And fire blight is transferred in the springtime through blooms on these trees. So wherever possible, we pinch back the flowers. And it's I don't know if it's just me, but it looks like it might be greening up a little bit. But we are, in the long term, really just, it's a case of managing its decline. Moving on to lanes. Cedar Park Lane. How to move my thing out the way there. Anyway, Cedar Lane. We had a project out there to replace the retaining wall, which was tipping over. The old wooden retaining wall was replaced with a soldier pile wall with steel I-beams. It was slightly more complicated than anticipated at the bottom of the lane down there because there were some utilities running through there. But at the end, it turned into quite a neat finish. Sticking with lanes, Park Lane. We have news for you on Park Lane. Starting on Monday, we have a contractor who will be demoing the existing Park Lane stair structures and installing the new concrete lane that has been in the works for a couple of years now. And along with the tree maintenance plan, I hope to have an update for you on this at the next meeting. Tennis courts resurfacing is happening next week. There's a project that'll last about a week that will be resurfacing, recoating the surface on the tennis courts. This is a maintenance coating and will provide a fresh coat of paint as well as new pickleball lines. Western surveyors will be completing a groundwater analysis and survey at Community Park to provide the city with details on 3 potential well site locations. It's something as well that has been in the works for a few years, but it has been on the capital improvement plan list for a while, and we'd like to move forward with that. Both of our big parks, this park and Tom Price Park, were, for most of their history, fed by wells. The city leases a well up the road on Laurel, which was used for irrigating Community Park, but that well has declined in productivity in the last few years. And so we'd like to investigate installing a new well somewhere on the park property. And yeah, hope to have some updates for you on that too. We also have a new iron and manganese filter going in at the well at Tom Price Park. The water down there has very high levels of iron and manganese, and there's a resulting sludge, manganese sludge, that builds up in the irrigation pipes and in the irrigation nozzles. And it causes problems with irrigation, of course, and it takes time for the crew to have to go and unplug things. So hopefully this filter will help the situation down there. And with that, I am done. And Charlie's questions are
amazing update, Tony.
welcome.
Thank you. I would think I was at one of those birthday parties from the last weekend that had all kinds of fun. And I'm curious, I guess the communication method seems to be through that sign that'll be in front of the playground, to remind people of the rules. But I had one question, and maybe it's worth clarifying. If you get a permit, does that guarantee you a dedicated space? That may be one reason that folks would potentially pursue that, because I know that it's very nerve-wracking the day of your child's birthday to see if there's some other rival party there. So folks might actually be inclined to explore a permit if it could lock in a space or something like that.
So, in a nutshell, no. Unfortunately, for the case of somebody wanting a birthday party, you can't reserve any site, and that's really because the city code is quite clear on allowing anybody to access the park and for it to not be closed off to anybody.
Okay.
So on a first come first served basis is kept in place. But for things like equipment or vehicles on the road, it is possible to have sort of no parking spaces allocated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I had a question about the trees. You mentioned something about like a tree management service. Do we have an index of every tree? Is that the idea that we will like in Central Park in New York, where they have a little like A1, 2, 3 for every single tree? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, but only for some of the city's trees.
Okay.
It would be too costly to try and do it for the entire city.
Okay.
And most of the city's trees are what I would call vegetation, growing in cities' right of ways on the island.
Okay.
That have been there for who knows how long. So I'm talking about the trees that were planted by the city and are in the parks and medians. So sort of landscaping trees and shade trees in the parks,
Okay.
which would be easier to count, but are also, I think, more more high profile, and it's more important to manage them.
Great. Okay. Does anyone else have questions for Tony? Yeah.
I just wanted to say cheers to the new retaining wall and stairs. I was out there this week and I know it was hard, but it really came out well. And it feels fantastic. So I just wanted to say cheers. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. Yep. Glad to hear it.
Do we want to open, should we open this item for any public question? Yeah, let's do that. Christina.
I see no questions or comments on the public forum.
Okay. And then anyone in the room care to comment on Tony Boyd's report? Or my report, actually? Yeah. Okay, great. Please press the mic button.
Sandy Donnell, I'm at 137 Golden Gate Avenue. And I'm also on the Belvedere Community Foundation. And so I'm curious about Park Lane. So is it going back to that original concrete bench and then down in concrete? Just curious.
Yes. So the curved design that I think there were two options originally, but and there were some late changes to it, which included raising the bench height to preserve the view of the bridge. But it's the same design that's been in the works for the last few years, and the same design that the BCF did review as well.
The really expensive one. Okay, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions about either my comments or Tony's report? Okay, perfect. So we're going to move on to our scheduled items for today. As mentioned earlier, we will be talking about what is labeled item number 8, which is the discussion on the proposal for a new drinking fountain at Land Company Park.
John Beacon's team.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time and effort towards open space and parks in Belvedere. Years ago, I had occasion to help out Marin County Open Space to fund the position of an interpreter, of a naturalist interpreter, when Bob Stewart retired. And we successfully did that by getting a third from the Board of Supervisors memberships and the foundation. So I appreciate all you're doing, and I believe totally in nature and the out of doors. And I wanted to not take much of your time by having this available, if I can find it now. There we go. Yeah. I've lived in this community for 61 years. I came here almost as a bride, and within 2 years, I met Elizabeth Terwilliger, a naturalist in Marin, and fell in love with her. And for the next almost 60 years, have been promoting nature education for children all over the Bay Area and nationally through the films I produced, 5 films, totally to turn children onto nature. And what better use than in parks here? As a matter of fact, I met James Campbell in a park here, showing my 5-year-old grandson something about the birds in the tree. And he was entranced by the idea that I was showing my grandson the birds and so on. But that's beside the point. I would like very much to see a 3-tiered water fountain installed in the park between the Belvedere Land Company and the San Francisco Yacht Club. For years, and we've raised our children here. For years, we have seen the children get on and off the school buses at the San Francisco Yacht Club, and they often hang out in that park, as do seniors sitting on park benches, and then the pets, the dog walkers. And this one is, I would like to see one like, is it on West Shore, the corner, and San Rafael Avenue. It's of stone, it doesn't stand out, but it has 3 levels, a level for pets and a level for small children and a level for adults. And I would like to fund this, as the family who funded that one had a bronze plaque there. And I would love to have that say the Beacons family, sort of as my legacy. And I hope it's soon, because in September I'll be 95. So do you have any questions of me?
Well, congratulations on your career and everything you've done for the community in Marin. I know we've talked about this item before, and as I recall, there were a lot of nodding heads around here about this being a great idea, but I do want to turn it to the committee to see if they have any questions or comments. Anyone?
I'll voice support. Walking to the ferry every day, that would be a nice place. Often don't have a water bottle and get thirsty, so I see it being a benefit to the community.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying I would support it, and walking to and from the ferry, and often with little kids, know that that's a place that, you're far away from town. You're not able to get water easily.
Thank you.
So could see the big benefit for the community.
Thank you. Well, my life has been involved in Belvedere because in 1970, I started the Terwilliger Nature Guides program at Richardson Bay Sanctuary. And many of our community members, including Petey Stein, became one of the Terwilliger Nature Guides early on. And that program has grown and continues all these years. So that is very wonderful. And the city has been more than generous to me and naming me the Citizen of the Year Emerita. And I've been in the Marin Women's Hall of Fame. And in the 70s, the Volunteer Activist of the Year by the county. So I've had many bouquets in these years. Thank you. But I would love your endorsement of the project, and then it goes up to whoever.
Yes, I would love to discuss that at one point, but I want to see if there's any other comment from the committee.
I'll probably have a few questions for Tony about implementation, but I'm supportive.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I can-
also, I just throw in my, I absolutely support it. I think it's actually one of the most used spaces, meaning by sort of all the community, because it's sort of at that juncture where everybody coming off the island and coming, into town comes through that place, and there are people coming and going, and I think it would be a great asset.
Yes, and there are 2 benches there too.
Yes, that are
people
always being used.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
I can chime in on 2 things about implementation. There is a dedicated water meter at that park, so it wouldn't be a problem to have water available for a drinking fountain. And then I also know that it's on the route of a lot of people who walk their dogs through Beach Road and Belvedere and around. So I think if we had a little pet bowl there too, I think it would be very used and welcome.
Well-
I know that both Ken and I just want to say our support for Joan.
Yeah.
She really is one of those treasures of Belvedere, and we're lucky to have had all that she's done. So to have her want to honor the city by doing this is fabulous.
Yeah, Joan, I'd like to say thank you for all the gifts that you've given to Belvedere over the years. And this as a legacy gift, as a gift to make this happen for everybody for generations to come. I'm blown away. I would love to have tea with you or meet you outside of this and just learn from you. So thank you again on behalf of the committee for your gift to Belvedere. And we're very excited about this. Maybe we should have a motion to confirm that excitement.
I move for the committee to endorse the offer of the fountain at that park, whose name I do not know,
Lane
Uh,
Company.
Land Company Park.
Land Company Park, thank you, Land Company Park, for the offer of the Beacons family.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Ken Johnson, a helper in this, I can't beat what's been said, this is professional photographer also, she forgot to mention. But we'll be working with Tony, who's been very helpful, and we'll try to get as much information before the committee, before the next public hearing. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Chair, before we move on to the next item, just a reminder to ask for public comment.
Oh, yes. At this point, I'd love to see if there's any public comment on this. Christina?
I have no public comment on the forum.
Okay.
On the Zoom platform.
And then anyone in the room, would you care to leave public comment? Okay. All right, great. With that, I'd like to move on to what is labeled item number 5, which is the discussion on lanes with an update on the lanes subcommittee. And I will turn it over to Marika, and there are some materials available over here. Would you like me to control the slide? Yeah, or you can go over there as
Okay,
well. Yeah,
perfect. There we go.
perfect. And you just have to turn on the mic.
Perfect, okay, I will do that. Caged in here. Okay, let's turn on the mic. It's on, it's green. Where, city clerk?
Here, we'll just hit, I'm gonna hit share screen.
Yep.
And then I've got your different windows set up here. There's 4 different items. I'm not sure which one you want to do first.
Actually, Charlie, you may need to come over because I'm not sure
She's
what
got,
the order, yeah,
okay,
yeah, I think you need to come here. You might need to drive.
here's your
Yeah.
4 different
Because I don't know, I
PDFs.
don't know what order you have it in. There we go.
Yeah, I can try to zoom a little
Well,
bit.
why don't we zoom? Let's start there. Why don't we
Okay.
Start with that one, and we'll try to make it more legible. If Ken, you know, I should be here.
Yep.
I'll be here at the microphone, and yeah, we'll try to zoom in a little. How's everybody's glasses? Anyway, we wanted to give an update on the lanes subcommittee. It was created per decision by this committee at the September 12th, 2024 meeting. Charlie and I are the 2 subcommittee members, and we are also working closely with Tony on this. So wanted to sort of give you an update as to where we are. The goal or the plan that we use to establish, or the decision to establish this subcommittee had 2 goals. One was to create basically a working, what we called like a working map, a working database of the lanes that could be a living, breathing document that the city, Tony and his team could use, the city council could use, this committee could use to basically, you know, identify the lanes and sort of create start as of now with a base condition for all the lanes, and then have the opportunity to, you know, evaluate per lane where they were, prioritize any need for work, and then basically manage and monitor that work moving forward, being able to update it as a living document. What had existed before were sort of static surveys that had been done at different times and not on a very regular basis. So that was the working database that was to be a city management tool. And then the second one was to use this same survey and work to create a sort of an official Belvedere walking map of the city that could be made available to the community. It was reported that there are a number of different maps that appear in different places in the city's records, and also, you know, being provided by different members of the community. And the idea was to use this work that we did for the city to sort of create an official walking map. So those were what we decided at the time, and we wanted to update you on the work we have done to date. So first of all, we worked with Tony, Charlie and I and Tony worked together to identify the key elements, key conditions that we wanted to survey. And they include things like,
the term, there we go. This is a good one. Here we go. So this is sort of the items that we wanted to look at, and they include obviously the conditions of the different elements, the conditions of the stairs, the railings, the landscaping. Other things that we included are its relevance for evacuation and safety. How commonly used are they? A big one that actually came up after we got started was lighting, because it turns out that a bunch of them have lighting at the top and the bottom. So those were the things that we were looking at. We created, and going back to the iBleary database, we created a Google Doc. We used Google Docs, it's Google Sheets, because that is a living, breathing document that can be shared by the various city staff and utilized as a working document. And we created a set of, so across the top, which you can't read, are sort of all the conditions. Down the left side, which you also can't read, he can point to you with a hand. Those are each of the lanes, and then we'll zoom in and look at a particular example. Then we have all these conditions, and then we actually also created. We worked with Tony to basically identify a basic system of identifying what we were grading them on as far as conditions on 1 to 5, and we worked together to decide what's a 1. What do we mean by if it's a 1, and what do we mean if it's a 5, with 1 being the worst and 5 being the best, so that we all were speaking the same language. And then after that, Charlie and I have stormed out. We did 2 together, and we also did 2. I did 2 with Tony, so that we were all on the same page. And now we have broken them up and got the work going. At this point, we have about 80% of the lanes done. Almost all of the ones that are named. Most of the ones that we haven't done yet are the ones that are unnamed, and we'll have those done probably in the next week or so. And at this point, we can zoom in. So you can actually, before we go on, here's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just before I forget, where we're showing the condition like 1, it's failed or it's on the verge of failure, all the way to 5, it's brand new. So failed or verge of failure versus 5. And we were sort of saying, okay, well, if we look to 5 would be Golden Gate, which is the one that is on the far side, that is basically only a couple of years old, right? The stairs are new, the railing's new, the whole thing's new. Take that as a 5, and then it's the range. So let's go to a sample. We wanted to pull up 1 or 2 for, we did Upper and Lower McLean, just to kind of show you what it looks like in practice, and sort of what you're seeing. Just so for those of you who don't know, Upper and Lower McLean are the 2 that are right here, right across here from, actually, well, a half block that way, going up from City Hall. So they're very high use because they're right near Community Park in downtown. So we thought this would be a good example. So this is the sort of the values that you can see and the things that we're mapping out for each one. So if you go to the top, and this is what scrolls across in a giant line, but here my Google Docs magician has put it in something we can read. So we identified the location, which is interesting because in all the various places, they're sometimes listed by different house numbers, et cetera. City number is a bunch of them. The city maps have a number. Marin Map Link. Marin Maps is a Marin County site that creates where you can create mini maps that show the parcels in an area. So we can go and we can zoom in on an area and know exactly where that is so that anyone can find it. The history. So here I've put, here's a basic one, named lane shown on all current and historic city lane maps. There are also a bunch of historic documents that we are working through to try to add any salient history about particular ones, because some of them there's a little bit more information. There's a description, basic description, and then here's the condition stuff. Is the lane accessible? So yes, we know McLean and Upper and Lower McLean, very accessible. Evacuation route potential, yes. Yes.
So a lane that wouldn't be accessible is probably one of the unnamed lanes.
Yeah.
So that's, I just want to make that distinction. what
Yeah,
that really
yeah.
means.
Accessible means right now you can walk up to it and you can walk on it and go. So accessible is just, is it open? Is it accessible? Evacuation route potential. How valuable is it? Well, we just have a yes. And then, one of the big things there is, how close is it to getting all the way down to the bottom? And how does it serve? What part of the community does it serve? What part of the island does it serve? Potential direct bay water access for evacuation, that is of course critical because a key evacuation value is for fire, right? So to be able to get all the way down to the bottom to a water location is important. So of course, McLean, it's not accessible and it never will be. Evacuation value, again, high given its location. And then benefits for public access. Why is this one particularly valuable for the public? And as we talked, next thing. And then you can see this is one's in pretty good condition. The stairs, the railings are in good condition. The landscaping is being well maintained. Landscaping can be a combination, as we've learned, of both what the city does as well as what adjacent property owners do, because in some places you have things that are very much overgrowing and can impact. So, looking at that, we just sort of said yes or no. This one has a great view. So we marked it, has a great view of the lagoon. Has a sign. A big thing is what's the condition of the sign. In this particular one, and then we are providing photos. Part of the problem, because I do know, part of the reason this has a sign issue and it's in the notes is that the post is broken. So it's not, some of it is that the painting is hard to read, but for others of them, the post is broken or something like that. So that's this. This was one that had lighting. So as you'll see, we've made a note on the lighting that this is one where the shrubbery has quite overgrown the lights. So this would be something that we could share with the city to consider for their work plan as they're doing their various landscaping. Assets, there's no bench, and there's my notes. And that's kind of an example of that one. And I think we, and then we have photos.
I'll just say we also we took a bunch of photos along
Yes.
the way, and as part of this database, we've made a Google Drive where we can put these photos over time. Like maybe if we're talking about the railing condition being deteriorated, which I think they're here, it's kind of
Yes.
bent over. So we're trying to provide additional context for some of the notes that we put in, and we'll have a nice Google Drive format where there's subfolders for each of the entities.
Right. And I mean, a perfect example is you could have a photo of there I am. You could have a photo of the before and after that, Tony, you showed earlier from the work that you just did, where we would have an old photo. And then once it is done, you could show a new photo. So anyway, so that's what it is. I think the final thing we wanted to share is would be the next steps. And again, the idea is that this turns into useful documents. So our first goal is to complete the survey, go through it with Tony, sort of circle back to be sure that we are all, it's where it has the right information, we have the photos, et cetera. And then we will come back to this committee to share where we are, and then go from there and first work on being sure that it's available and how we make sure it's working as a database for Tony and his team to use. And then, of course, at that point, we can revisit setting the priorities. And the goal, of course, is for this to inform both working plans as well as budget by identifying priorities and being able to make trade-offs based on the priorities identified, for each lane and the cost of addressing them. So where some things might not cost that much because it's trimming shrubbery, but others might be like the work that was just done that involved a retaining wall. So those are trade-offs, and it will be nice, I think, for us all to be informed and be making decisions through that lens rather than sort of what bubbles up, or as we say in the sailing world, what floats across the transom. So that's my presentation. Anyone have any questions for me? Or for Charlie? I can come back. Do I need to turn this off? I can. I will let you touch it. If I touch it, I'll shut down the whole system.
I left this picture up just because it was one thing I want to say is it was super fun doing this lane survey. I brought my 4-year-old daughter, Tavi. She's here with Marika. At one point, we went down Harry B. Allen steps and sort of tried to find the bottom of some of the lanes on the strip. And my daughter found a marble, and she's obsessed with marbles. And I told her when you're older, and she found a marble down there. So that was truly hilarious. But we've had a blast. It's been a really fun process. I really want to be able to send the spreadsheet to everybody so that you can poke around and give feedback on that. So Marika, you've done an amazing job. So thank you so much.
It takes two, and it's been a fun time, and Tony and I had a good time too.
Okay, yeah. Any questions for the lane subcommittee from the rest of the committee?
No, thank you for your work, though.
Yeah,
I think
thank
that
you.
Our goal, I would say, our goal would be to have this completed for the lanes by our next meeting. That's our hope. We have put on the open space and parks on it, but that was sort of, that's part two. Our short-term focus is the lanes, so.
I wanted to thank you both for doing this. It's amazing service that you're putting together for the city, which is fabulous. But the only question I had, Tony, was about the use of the word accessible, because I know sometimes that has a connotation of disabled accessibility. And I just wonder, do you think that for clarity, we should change that word there? Or do you think it's okay the way it is?
I think if there is a different word, it's not a bad idea, just so if anybody's, looking at it, and I guess it might prevent some confusion.
We can change it to traversable. Would that work?
Yeah.
Usable? Yeah.
I mean, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
Usability, yeah,
that
you're
was
right.
the goal.
Suggestion?
I just have a question that might be totally off point.
Do you want to come to the mic? Is that all right?
We've lived here for, my wife and I. Oh, sorry. So we walk the lanes. I don't think any of you were here other than Jane when Golden Gate Lane was designed and created. Is that right? I don't think any. of you
No,
were
this is
involved
a
in
new
that.
committee.
Not on the-
Not on
These
the
are new
committee.
faces from that
Right,
era.
Other than
Living in
Jane.
town, living
So
in
I
town,
have
but not on the committee.
this is really an off-point question. Because when my wife and I walk Golden Gate Lane, those treads are very narrow, much narrower than the other treads on any other lane we walk. Like we pick, and as we've gotten older, we're like careful, particularly if we're going downhill, if a tread is wide enough. Now, Park Lane is an issue, all those lanes up there. But Golden Gate Lane seems really narrow. There's nothing to do about it. It's way too late. But I'm just wondering if I'm the only person who's ever raised that question.
I can't say for sure because we weren't here during part of that design. I am grateful that there are handrails as you're going up and down that lane.
Yeah. But do you know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
Yeah.
trust me, I use those lanes all the time and that is it's also a particularly steep.
Yeah,
That's
steep.
part of it. It's
But
super
like,
steep.
I'm not a contractor, I'm not in that business. I'm like, is this code? That, I don't know what that is. It's like 9 inches. I mean, it's tight. It just is a.
Yeah, and I think a big part of this process is taking a look at the condition of all the other stairs. Even if they are wider, some of them have deteriorated. It looks like some of the lanes may have been like when the land company first created them or something,
I'm
so.
just curious if anyone ever brought that up, but you've
Yeah.
observed it. I mean, it's not something you're not going-
Yeah, thank you, but I think I think that is an example whether, that's Golden Gate, but for all the lanes, that is like sort of looking at this as we look at what the status of the lanes is now and think about, if it needs to be done, being able to look at that.
Because Jane, do you remember, I mean, that was a big discussion.
Yes, it was.
Golden Gate Lane
It took a long
went on
time.
for years. in
Yeah.
terms of, does this make sense?
Right.
It's so steep
It's so,
and it went way over budget. And my guess is obviously they had to do the treads that narrow because of what they had to work with,
I
right?
think the steepness
Yeah.
dictated,
And that was,
right.
that was a big conversation
Yeah.
over.
and I happen to agree with both of you. I cling to that handrail when I go up and rarely go up, definitely when I go down.
Well, Councilmember Markman also mentioned, it does have a bench at least halfway through it, which is, I think, a very important respite. So Tony, I think pursuant to this comment, what is the width of the Park Lane steps that are in mind? And I don't know if you have an answer now, but maybe that's something just to update on to make sure that we're not as narrow as we might be.
Yeah,
Park
Yeah.
Lane's on it.
Okay, well, I mean, in the new section.
He's
the
talking
new-
about the new-
yeah.
Yeah.
I believe it matches the existing
Great.
width. And there's probably a minimum width. There's a building code width that was incorporated into the design. But yeah, just to, I guess, chime in on the Golden Gate steps, it is extremely steep. You know, typically you'd want to have kind of a zigzag, kind of dog-legging kind of route for something that steep. But in that situation, I think the city had a very narrow right-of-way to work with, and ended up just going with the only option available, which was a very steep set of stairs. Yeah, and yeah, I think it's no surprise that that was the last set of stairs built. I mean, it's one of these cases where, you know, as we know, there's a map with, you know, multiple locations where on paper there are, you know, space for lanes to exist. But all the low-hanging fruit has been gotten as far as ones that are easy to build. And the ones that are left now are really in very steep and inaccessible places. Yeah, but yeah, that's where we are with that.
Great. Is there any other comment from the Zoom participants?
I have no comment on the Zoom platform.
Okay. Any other comment from the room?
I have just something to add to the general lanes discussion.
Yep.
The budget this coming year has been kind of rearranged as far as lanes go. In the past, budget allocations have been made to specific projects, specific lane projects. So Park Lane and Centennial Park, which is Hawthorne Lane, had funding allocated to them for specific projects. The finance department, working with the finance committee and the mayor and council, have moved that to a different way of allocating funds for lanes, and that is the idea being that every year there'll be a consistent amount available to be used at the discretion of whatever the priorities are of the Parks Open Space and Lanes Committee and staff. So I believe in the coming year there's an allocation of $80,000, which it's enough to do a good project or some good structural repairs, and that's been forecast out for the next 5 years. And it also serves as matching funds for any available grants that we might be able to pursue for different projects.
Tony, is that use it or lose it every year? Or if there's a $120,000 project, can it be banked?
Yeah, great question. No, that's not use it or lose it. Anything left over would roll over into the following year. Yep. So if a big project is coming down the pike, you can plan for it, 2 or 3 years in advance.
Thank you.
Thanks for that update, Tony. That's great to hear.
You're welcome.
All right. I will take us to the next item then, which is number 6, update on the proposed Artist View project. So I'll go through the update here. As I mentioned in the beginning, since our last meeting, we had the City Council presentation on the Parks Open Spaces Lanes Committee's priorities for the year, which were continued work on lanes, but also the Artist View project. So to that extent, I just wanted to recap on why now, why are we pursuing this now? One of the things that we went over in our letter and our conversation with City Council was the mission of the Parks Open Space Lanes Committee, which is effectively acting as stewards for these public places for our community, protecting them, developing them in a manner consistent with Belvedere's general plan. So to that end, when you're looking at Belvedere, particularly Belvedere Island, there really are very few open space parcels available. One that comes to mind is Centennial Park, but we already have that in the works in terms of the repairs that are being needed there. And I think we're all very excited about that. The other one here is Artist View. Artist View has been, was deeded to the city a number of years ago. And at the moment, I think we all acknowledge that it's currently in a condition where it's not really safe for people to safely enjoy and take in the scenic beauty of that area. So again, in terms of why now, we have funding available to pursue a project, which we also have turned into the idea of a viewing platform. This is the idea here is that folks will be able to safely enjoy this scenic beauty. So that's what we presented to City Council. And this priority was, one of the things we wanted to do was come to city council with one focused project, which I think I heard feedback that they appreciated. And so given that, city council came back to me and said, please proceed. They gave the okay to go to the next steps. And the next steps were coming up with a few more details about the designs and the logistics of what this would look like. And it also was engaging with the neighbors to get their feedback. And we have been going out. We have a small working group that's been going out and engaging with the local nearby neighbors. We have done that in a variety of formats, just really spending time out there. You run into people. You run into people walking on the street, walking their dog with strollers, and you can have nice conversations. So I know I've personally had a lot while I've been walking my son out there. We've also received letters from different people. The Johannes Myers provided a letter. We also got letters from Gail Bloom, Antonio Cartolucci. Folks are starting to become aware of this, aware of the project. And that's been really great because we've been able to look at all the feedback and work through addressing it systematically. And I think one of the things I want to do next is go over the latest design with this committee. And this design is a reflection of that feedback. And I think it'd be great to be able to pull this up at this point. I know there is a visual of it, and you can sort of see what we're talking about. And ultimately, the goal of this discussion is to get feedback from the committee, any other feedback from the community, and then the goal would be going to the planning committee about moving forward. And that's the guidance that City Council gave us. So again, this is the current rendering and mock-up of what this would look like. We've been fairly flexible as we've gathered feedback from some of the community around the orientation of it. Again, given the nature of the slope of the land and also the direction, we oriented it in such a way that the focus here is going to be on Angel Island. That's the sort of preeminent element of what Artist View at that level can offer. The idea here is that there would be an opening wide enough for someone with a stroller or on a wheelchair to be able to come in and take a breather. And it's really at the same level, unlike the Vista Point land spot over the yacht club, where there is a couple steps down. The idea here is you've got that smooth entrance from the road. There's one or two small benches. And one of the concerns that we had heard was folks sort of setting up a picnic, but we've arranged it in a way that we're really trying to make it to discourage people from spending too much time there, but coming in and having a breather and moving on with their walk. That was one of the feedback items we heard. Yeah, the shape I think is fairly elegant. We have this sloping side here that provides this really nice view of the water. I think, again, in terms of feedback, one interesting thing here is the scale of the property. You can see Artist View is quite extensive, and it does sort of triangularly go down to the shore there. But what we're talking about, rather than, we'd heard previous feedback about concerns about a meandering staircase really cutting through the scenic beauty of the property. We've now got, we've really focused on this small cantilevered viewing platform off the top. So you can see how sort of in line and humble the proposal is to get people off the road in a safe manner, but still take in that viewpoint. I think I've covered most of the design. I'd be curious if there's feedback or thoughts from the committee on the state of the project or the designs maybe at this point. I'll turn it over to the committee to see if they have comments.
So I would put two things in here.
Okay.
Just so it's clear on the record, the funding that's available is grant. It's not city funding, not part of the 80,000.
Yep.
So it's important. It's outside money on that.
Excellent point.
But I'd also, I know the story, but it would be good for everybody to know the accessibility, going back to that word and its true meaning of accessibility, what this design does and why this differs from the overlook on Beach Road.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you want
Do
to
you want to proceed? Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So, one of the issues that came up is the overlook on Beach Road is absolutely not accessible.
Yeah.
Not to mention it's probably just a little sketchy, period. But, stroller, wheelchair, walker, it's just difficulty walking. It's a tough place. So this design was put together on two fronts, the platform itself, and then the approach to the platform that will be fully compliant or fully accessible under all of the handicap rules. And I think one piece, I don't know if you can blow it up, is the design on the bottom piece.
The bottom left.
Let's see. Either one of them.
Yeah.
To show the little what it looks like the island. And so we worked with the designers to look at this. One of the issues was companion space, which is required by the law. And how do you do that where people aren't facing the road or don't have their view blocked? And this was the solution that was developed. And I think it's a really elegant solution to provide a sitting area with a companion space, so it meets all of the accessibility requirements. But I also like that taking in the neighbor feedback on where the eye goes on the property, it pulls down the length of the property. And that's the reason you see the arc design. It's not just a symmetrical design. That arc design pulls the eye down the property the way the bench, the teardrop bench is shaped, pulls the eye down the property away from any of the houses on the side. So it was a wonderful meshing of accessibility requirements and that long lot to pull the eye straight down.
Thanks for going through that. I think that's one of the reasons that I think this particular project is incredibly special for our community, and that's aligned with a lot of the feedback from folks who are in favor. Any comments or thoughts on this?
I just really appreciate the dedication to the ADA aspect of it. I don't think we have a lot of those facilities in our community, and I think it's appreciated that was taken not just into account but prioritized.
So to search the island, there is no ADA compliant viewing platform, viewing area anywhere on the island. So,
yeah. So one other thought, feedback will continue. So the engagement, we've reached out and spoke to a lot of neighbors. There are nearby neighbors who have had concerns, and some of them continue to have concerns. And we've really tried to systematically respond to each of those things. I expect that conversation to continue, but one of the things, after I open it up for public comment, would love to get the committee alignment on moving forward with Planning Commission after this. But if there's no other comment from the committee, oh yeah, Wayne.
I'm going to add one more. The drawing on the left-hand side of the screen. We talked with Tony about basically managing the vegetation as a deeper screen for both privacy, visual privacy, and a density to absorb any sound. And so the city already manages the vegetation on the lot, it's obligated to. So there are some things besides the structure to really make it non-intrusive. And talking about working with neighbors as we were told to do. Yep. That's part of the whole thing that Tony would be managing.
Yeah. Among some of those mitigations, like changing this from a stairway to a viewing platform, thinking about demarcating this zone and the same level of park so that there are like designated hours of accessibility. I think we've talked with the fire chief about mitigating fire risk. So really, I think this working group has been systematic in its approach to having this conversation with neighbors, and we're eager to continue that conversation. But before I open it up, Tony, did you have anything you wanted to add on this item?
No, I think you've touched on all the most important points. I mean, I've sort of been a spectator while the subcommittee has worked very hard on engaging with neighbors and with the architect to kind of hone the design into something that's as acceptable as possible. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the details that are in here have actually been, considered quite carefully. This TimberTech material is plastic and conforms with fire code for WUI areas, and that's wildland urban interface areas, which is the areas where fire departments have jurisdiction over as far as approving plans and so on. This isn't a WUI area, but this still complies with those higher level of restrictions. So yeah, absolutely. I know there's more work to go into it, but it's definitely had it's definitely come a long way in a very short time.
Great, and I do want to acknowledge that we did receive public comment in advance. So there's at least one article or letter here that is listed and linked to on the agenda that I know everyone's been able to see before. And then Christina, thank you for sending around the other public comment letters that were received earlier today. So they're on the record. But I want to see anyone in the room. Would you care to come to the podium? Thank you. Could you
Hi,
state your name?
Michael Davis.
Great.
And I want to thank Jane and anyone else who's reached out to us. So I just want to just give a little history because many of you are new to this. I'm a neighbor of Artist View, and I think the neighbors have a right to be concerned. 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, this committee, not these members, but this committee initiated a process of investigating how the city could develop Artist View. Anthony, I don't think you were here 6 years ago either. It was contentious. We were, I don't know if you know any of that history. Are you familiar with any of that history? We were insulted. We were insulted publicly, personally. And that's on the record. You can go review the record. You can see it. The committee was inviting the public to go down Artist View, to visit Artist View. One point I'd like to make is we moved here in 92. We've been here 32 years. We raised our children here. Knock wood. There's always been peace in our neighborhood. For up until 5 years ago, there were no fences down in our, of all the neighbors. No one had a fence. There was no need to have a fence. Jane, you remember that era. You remember a different era in this town. You must remember a different era. And then all of a sudden, 5 years ago, all sorts of people were coming down Artist View, and nobody knew where the property lines were, so we had to put fences up. Then someone came and tore down my fence, it's on video. And then people were defecating on the Johannes Myers property. And then there were people jumping off, they had private property signs posted all over. And they have videos of people coming down and jumping off their dock. And they have videos of that. And I'm thinking, whose liability is that, right? If people are coming down and jumping off. And so, you know, we lived through this. Whereas this bench or this project is something that you might visit for a few minutes a day. We live there, right? So this is 24 hours. When the committee back 5 years ago, 6 years ago, was talking about putting a pathway down Artist View, my question was, how are you going to police this? This is a different, it doesn't end anywhere. I mean, even Peter Mark was saying it's a path to nowhere. It's not like the other lanes, which actually go from a street to a street for the most part. Artist View is so remote as a possibility. It's like, how is the city going to police this? And if not, basically what they're doing is that the city is asking us to police it, right? So I think the point, I know you've probably heard many of these points before, but the arguments aren't illegitimate from the point of view, from various points of view, since we live there and we have to engage with whatever the impact is going to be, you know, all day long, whatever that is. The other point, you know, it's very narrow up there. The road, Belvedere Avenue is very narrow. So it's often the case when and by the way, as an aside, as you may or may not know, there are 3 very large houses permitted to be built right next door, right at the end of Belvedere Avenue, 455 Belvedere Avenue, and then 2 houses over. So if any of you have been around if you have any of your neighbors have had construction projects since you've been here, you know what that means. There are a lot of trucks. It's often the case. If a truck parks outside, right outside the Artist View plaque, they're encroaching. An emergency vehicle can't get by. There isn't 10 feet between where that truck is parked and the side of the road. I don't know if you have any plans to deal with the hillside on the other side to widen that road, but it's an issue. It's a constant issue. So I think somebody needs, I'm hopeful that you're taking a look at that because it's real. Even, I mean, we've had construction at our house. We've been through 2 remodels. We've had, people park their trucks, that whole area up until you get to Mark Herrero's 456. It's very tight across from Artist View, and that's a concern. So, and then the last point, and I'm sure you for this, I don't want to, I know you've put a lot of work into this. I know you put a lot of work into design, and I appreciate it. I've designed things myself. I've done construction projects, and I don't like things to go to waste, and I recognize that. You've been very careful. And the approach you've taken in dealing with the neighbors is completely different than what was done 5 years ago. So I really appreciate, and it's new to us, to be honest with the neighbors. So that's very much taken into account and appreciated. The other issue, one of the other issues is kind of, there's a bench going in Park Lane. There's the seating over at Winifred Allen Bench, is a real necessity here, as an example. And the other thing I'll mention is, and another concern, to me, it's someone, if we go, obviously we go by Winifred Allen Bench every single day. The people who go and visit Winifred Allen Bench are not people who live in Belvedere. It's just a fact. I mean, we go by there every day. It's wonderful. People, people come, their cameras taken out, they bring their children, et cetera. But it's not necessarily designed for Belvedere residents, as an example. I don't know if that's at all relevant, to any of this. But I'll just, what's the necessity, in particular? I get it that you have a grant, and obviously you spent a lot of time in the design, and I'm sure you've thought this out very carefully. But those are the points that I think are not illegitimate that the neighbors, are making on this. And I think that's it.
Thank you,
Any
Michael.
questions of me?
Charlie, can I?
Yeah, please, Wayne.
So I want to start with, I haven't heard the contentious part of the story before, and I'm sorry, that's not how anything should work.
What's that?
The contentious part where name calling and that's just not the way things should work.
Right.
And I hope no one ever feels that that's the way it's working this time.
Absolutely not.
Okay, thank you. And if it ever does, please raise it. It's not meant to be contentious. It's meant to be, what's good for the island long term.
Yeah, no, I get that. No, I appreciate that.
So I was going to ask, is there anything in particular, say we move forward with exploring this more, is there anything in the design, anything in the setup that would alleviate some of the concerns, or is it basically all or nothing?
Well, that's, I have to think about, do you feel that the issue of the narrowness of Belvedere Avenue is addressed adequately? In other words, it's really tight up there. You're gonna have trucks parked along Belvedere Avenue there. What does that look like as a practical matter? I'm trying to think of it, the practical. There's the aesthetic of the design, which I'm sure, I have no doubt is really nice, and the care. But I'm trying to visualize the actual practicality of that issue, of the narrowness of the road and how people, because obviously, when we're working in our garage, we have a garage door open, we see all the traffic that goes by, okay? All the time, right? And the traffic is heavy on the weekends, right? Very heavy on, Saturday and Sunday, a lot of traffic. And if there are cars parked, of course, on the weekends aren't the trucks there, the construction trucks aren't there, right? So. but
I
if
think
the
it's more
car-
bikes on the
What's
weekend.
that?
There's a lot of bikes on the weekend. I'm not sure there's a lot of cars, but there's
Yeah.
definitely a lot of
Yeah,
bikes.
I'm just trying to visualize the access, the congestion.
I was gonna, just to chime in, I was gonna say, this is all of your points we acknowledge, and I really appreciate you raising them. And this is, the thought of the road is something that I'd love for the working group to chat about. For when if we move forward with going to the planning committee, I think we should have some comment on what impact it might have for traffic flowing through the road. So I really appreciate you raising that.
Okay.
Yeah.
In one part of the visualization might be useful for Tony to explain wow, I don't know the right term, the bumpy mat and how the parking will be adjusted to make sure that it's accessible. So Tony, I don't know if you can explain that from the drawing.
Yeah, so it's not clear on the drawing because it's in black and white, but you might be familiar with pedestrian ramps at traffic lights, where there's a mat, a plastic mat. It's called a truncated dome mat with all the bumps on it. That will be installed here so that people exiting the deck and entering the street. It wouldn't be a ramp down, actually. It would be flat, but that truncated dome mat indicates to a person who needs that feedback, that tactile feedback, that they are entering into a street area. So that's design.
Sidewalk there? Is there still going to be a sidewalk on Belvedere? That is a little bit of a, there's a little bit of a sidewalk there.
Well, so this is within the parking area. There's no sidewalk on any part of Belvedere close to Artist View.
Sidewalk, I mean, there's a little, right next to the fence.
I mean, the curb.
there's a
Where the
little
plaque is. Yeah.
step
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Oh, yep.
step up where you can walk along the fence,
Mhm.
right? And will that be broken down? Will that?
Only 4
No.
feet of it,
Right.
Okay, 4 feet will be
but the
broken
rest
down.
would all remain.
Yep, exactly. So that would remain in place. There'd probably be some red curb around the entrance area so that cars don't park at the front of the entrance.
Parking space.
Probably lose a parking space. If I'm not mistaken, that parking, the length of that parking area is 120 feet. And if it's 20 feet, that's lost. It would be one parking space. That would be considered one park. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say, Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and
Nice to see you.
I think one comment that I'm reflecting on is, we view this viewing platform as a way to, sort of cordon off Artist View. And we've talked about the steepness of the slope. I've walked down there before. It is very steep. This project is not about gaining access to, the shoreline or anything like that there. So that was one of the considerations that we had in mind with this design. And I also just want to say, this committee is really trying to have this earnest dialogue with everyone nearby. So I really appreciate you coming to the meeting and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you.
Yep, we have another. Thank you. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, my name is Linda Bine. I live
Okay.
at 339 San Rafael Avenue. And I'm here to wholeheartedly support what I consider a very modest plan to create the viewing platform at Artist View. I've been walking on Belvedere Island for 45 years. My family moved here in 1981. My parents moved from San Francisco. And I used to walk with my father and then walked by myself with friends here for more than 30 years. On longer walks, it's nice sometimes, especially in the summer, to stop and sit on a bench, to look out at a view, to look at the water, to look at my former hometown across the bay. And it's something that, as a resident here down on the flats on San Rafael Avenue, I don't have from my house. So I like to walk, I like to look at the views. And I think that what I especially like about the Artist View is the ADA compliance. I mean, as someone mentioned, it's the only one that would meet that requirement here in Belvedere, and also that it's funded by a grant. And I did a rough calculation, I'm not an architect. I mean, it looks like maybe 3% of that big parcel is this little platform. And I mean, as I said, I enjoyed walking here with my father. Unfortunately, when he was about the age I am now, he was suddenly stricken with a rare debilitating illness and was confined to a wheelchair. And he was like that for several years before he passed away. And I just think what a joy it would have been to have been able to go there with him and look out at the vista and have a little conversation. I mean, it is not inconsequential for people in wheelchairs, for people with mobility issues. This is something really special. And so I guess my final comment is really for people who have reservations about the proposal. If you're healthy enough to be able to walk without assistance, or you have a view, a gorgeous view from your house, just consider your fellow Belvedereans who aren't as fortunate. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Linda. Is there any comment from the Zoom?
There is no Zoom comment.
Okay, I want to see if there's any motion. Oh, yeah, motion to move forward with.
Is it time for us to have comment or?
Oh, yeah,
after-
please.
I don't know.
Yes, yes, Marika, please.
I mean, I just thought, I don't know what the process is.
That's the process.
This is the process, yeah.
Okay, good. Right. So I just wanted, first of all, to acknowledge the committee, the subcommittee who have done an amazing amount of work, and really appreciate also the work, not just in the design, but also sort of the outreach and the discussion, and particularly thank you for coming in and the letters that we received. Because I think having a constructive dialogue that is positive and respectful is always the goal, and the hope and the plan is to whatever is created, and whether it's at Artist View or any place else in the city, that it is, you know, for the benefit of the broader community, and is something that elevates us all instead of divides us. So I just wanted to say that as one thing. And I wanted to answer, I think that the traffic thing and the parking thing, I think is really important. As a person who both walks and bikes and drives up and around there, no question there's an issue. And you know, my question is always like, okay, are these people even legally parked? And or what, you know, so to me, people are parked there all the time. It has nothing to do with the viewing, whether the viewing platform is there or not. And if we have a concern about emergency vehicles, I guess, you know, maybe this is a time when it's now being elevated. But if that's a concern of the neighbors in the community, I think it's something that we should look at, because whether, I mean, there's been that one project that's been there for years that's finally finished, and more coming. And anyway, as we know, our island always has construction, and the width of our streets is always a concern. So I just feel like maybe it's being elevated by this project, but I don't see this project contributing to it. So that's just a comment, because every time I'm, you know, I don't live right there, but certainly every time I go there, there are, if it's not construction vehicles, it's other people's visitors or whomever, because just like every place else on the island, parking is limited, right? So it's not even your party or your friends, it's your friends 5 houses down. So I wanted to share that and sort of say that may be something that needs to be a broader view outside of just the Artist View. And then to the use, so it was interesting, the discussion about Winifred Allen Bench. So I walk all the time. My husband and I walk all the time. And actually we use that area all the time. We actually call it, we call it the coffee bench, the morning coffee bench, because that's the place that you can go in the morning, especially early, and it's great, you know, sunrise viewing, etc. And and I will say, whenever I'm there, whether it's early in the morning or the middle of the day, I actually see tons of neighbors there stopping, using that seat, admiring that view. So I wanted to sort of, I guess, say, I think that all of us as neighbors use all of these areas. And the Winifred Allen Bench is not great. Half the time you want to sit there, and speaking of being impacted by construction trucks, you know, there's people parked there. It's not accessible. I mean,
It's a parking spot along the whole thing, right?
It's a parking spot along the whole thing, and depending on how close they are to Winifred Allen's benches, you may or may not be able to sit on them. So I do think that it is both used by our community actively, and is not ideal. And one of the things I think Artist View will provide is something farther up the island for those of us who like to go around it or whatever and take advantage of that view, but also in a way that is more safe, whether it is providing accessible access to that view, but even for, you know, those of us who can make that walk, but who, you know, oftentimes find ourselves stopping for views basically in the street or between park and cars. So I wanted to just mention those two things. There's a couple of things that I think this design does. Now, whether, as it goes forward, I know it's still being worked on, but those were a couple of points I wanted to share.
Thank you. Any other comment?
I just wanted to echo that and, excuse me, say my thanks for the committee members who have been looking at this, the very thoughtful nature of the plans. I think the iterative nature with the neighbors and with the community on concerns and taking those into account and really making this a dialogue as we intend it to be. And, for me, the thoughtfulness of the ADA compliance being, whether it's a stroller, whether it's a wheelchair, individuals being able to access it and have that spot safely versus being on the road. That's managing toddlers. That has always been a concern of mine when walking around the island. So I would welcome an addition like this, but also want to make sure that all of the concerns are addressed. And thank you all for taking those into account already.
Great. All right. I mentioned at the beginning, the working group was planning to take this to planning next, but I'd love to see if the committee is interested in moving forward on a motion to move to planning for the project.
I can so move. I can
Yeah.
move. I should we promotion.
Yeah.
I can so move that
Did we
the
already
committee
check on-
moves
we
it
did?
forward to the next level for review and consideration at the planning commission. Is that?
Is that right, Tony?
Can I
Is that-
just confirm, did I miss check for public comment online?
I
Was there-
did.
You did?
We
Okay, great.
kind of went
Okay,
in,
yeah, sorry.
we did the room, we did Zoom, and then we did us.
Okay, great. Yeah. I just wanted to make 100% sure. Thank you.
All right, there's a motion to move to the
I
next
moved.
stage. Okay, any
I'll-
seconds?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we'll be in touch on next steps there.
Charlie, can I make one comment?
Yes.
So the issues that were raised.
Yeah.
Will not be ignored and be
Yeah.
looked at as we talked about this going forward. So
Yeah,
I kept a note for everything you raised and may reach out to you again to look at the plans and talk to you about it. So
thank you.
Thank you.
very interested.
All right, with that, we can move to old business item number 7. This has been my idea for a while. Don't know if anyone else wants to do it, but have an outdoor parks meeting at some point. I'm okay kind of deferring this. Maybe we do it in 2 meetings from now or something. I think scheduling's already hard enough. I had a sub comment on that, which was, thank you, Christine and Tony, for sending through the calendar invites. I talking to some people, we live and breathe by our calendar. So if it's in the calendar, I think we'll have better attendance, but I move to sort of table this topic for now. Any seconds. Marika, do you disagree? No. Yeah.
We should make it a motion, then we can talk
Yeah,
about it. So
okay.
who's going to second it? So-
I'll second it. I also want to say thank you for the calendar invites. It's extremely helpful.
I'm not actually voting against it. I wanted to just throw out a comment. I feel like our meetings, one, are very hard to schedule, and they do, and them being able to be available by Zoom really helps people, et cetera. And we only have a few a year. So as we look ahead, and to bring it back, I think my thought might be that could it be something that is in addition, a sort of an unofficial meeting, a chance, like meet with your parks commissioners, go on a walk and talk to the commission, sort of a meet and greet, walk and talk. And, maybe, and find a time to do that. I would suggest maybe after, in the fall or something, but rather than make it part of a meeting.
I think that's way better. It'd be hard to do all this paperwork and
Yes.
whatnot. I definitely have seen something where it's like city council member and Robert have a meet and
Chat,
greet.
yeah.
So
Yes.
Council chat.
Yes,
I think
so
something like this
that.
for the fall would be kind of
Yeah.
cool.
I think that would be great. And
okay.
I think they'll probably, at that time, there might be, there'll be further progress on even the 2 things that were the main focus of this meeting.
Yeah.
That would be great to be, have a meet and greet opportunity.
Okay, perfect. I agree with that for what it's worth.
That was my understanding also. It's an and not a replacement.
Okay.
Tony,
There may be an opportunity for some ribbon cutting ceremonies in the next year or two, which would be
Hey.
a good time to
That'd be-
to meet
that'd be
and
really
greet.
fun.
How long is the Park Lane thing supposed to take?
Supposed to take, yeah. That's a good question. Through July is when that's the construction should be completed by end of
Nice.
July.
Okay, that,
I
that.
love it.
That's soon.
is there are they doing the services barbecue outreach thing has that been scheduled? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
It was the one that you were the grill master for.
Emergency preparedness.
Emergency
Oh, yeah,
preparedness.
Right, yeah, of course.
Is that-
Yeah.
It's being
does it-
discussed right now,
Okay.
choosing a date, but it hasn't been scheduled yet.
Okay.
Did you have something specific?
Well, we had a booth there last.
We had a booth
time.
and no materials and I was like sort of
And,
making
uh,
paper mache maps. It was a
And so
mess.
we had a booth and I thought it was great outreach, even though it was kind of geared towards more emergency services versus city services. Maybe there's a way to build on that.
That's a good
as
idea,
well
too.
And have another point of contact for the community.
Okay,
The lanes, it's a great spot to kind of highlight the lanes as a evacuation route and
Yeah.
just, city owned.
Let's
kind
keep
of
in
thing.
mind out when it is.
If
We're
it-
cracking on the survey.
If it happens, I think it would be October.
okay, great. So before any motions, I want to see if there's any Zoom comments on this topic.
There are no Zoom comments.
Thank you, Christina. So I think there's kind of two things. One is, what is our engagement with the emergency preparedness thing? And maybe I could, rather than have motions here, Jane, if I could just follow up with you on that as chair to see when that's being scheduled for and how we can be prepared for our booth.
Can we be prepared for the emergency preparedness?
Exactly. Yeah, it's all,
We all need to do
A good
it.
example.
great. And then maybe Tony, you and I can coordinate about, ribbon cutting or, Park Lane and things like that. And maybe we can use that as an opportunity to merge together. So.
Yeah,
okay.
that sounds good. This is, probably a good time for me to mention, I won't be in town for the next scheduled meeting, which I think was September the 11th. So we're going to have to work on a meeting date for September in any case.
Okay, maybe we can do that in the future items section. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'm inclined to move on because I don't think we need any motions for this. Okay. We're now into new business, Coastal Cleanup Day 2025. I don't, Tony, do you have something on this?
Yeah, I just have a very short little update for that. And it's really just to put it on the radar. The next meeting will be closer to when it's happening. It's on September 23rd at 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. This is something that happens every year in Belvedere. It's a volunteer activity. And this year, Adam Gabzer is very involved with it, along with James Campbell, who over the years have always, they're kind of out there every year. They will be meeting at the water fountain on San Rafael Avenue at 8:45 a.m. and everybody will need to sign waivers before they do the cleanup along San Rafael Avenue. And to make a plan of action. So if you do plan on attending, wear sturdy shoes and bring work gloves if you have them. And then what happens there is everybody makes a big pile or two of all the litter that they find, and Monday morning the city crews come along and pick them up.
Amazing. Any comment on this?
Yes, one comment is that all of these important dates will always show up in the Belvedere Breeze. So please make sure to check your breeze on a monthly basis, including tomorrow.
All right. Any comment on coastal cleanup from anybody? Great. I think they call it mudlarking too, like when you're finding treasures too. So hopefully the tides will. Marbles? Yeah, marbles. I'll tell Tavy. Okay. All right, item number 10. So this one's me. This is about the Tiburon Parks Commission and other members of Tiburon. They've been obviously doing a lot, if you've read in the ARC, with their various like parks priorities and things like that. One of the things that has come up for them is kayak and SUP access. And that was a top ranked priority for them. So some people reached out to me mainly because there was a map that was done of different possible locations for SUP access points. And despite I think water really defining our peninsula. It actually is kind of tricky to think about where that would be located, whether it's tides or, private property and things like that, even along the railway trail and San Rafael Ave, that's Richardson's Bay, and that's closed for 4 to 5 months a year as a bird sanctuary. So kind of an interesting wrinkle, thinking about how much water is surrounding Tiburon Peninsula and how difficult it is if you want to get out there on a SUP or something like that. So I wanted to bring this here. I have some pictures. I collect these pictures over time of, it's sort of like in Jurassic Park where life finds a way. People find a way to do this. This was the other day, I was at Vista Point, and I guess these people accessed it by water, but you can see people down at Allen Beach, enjoying Allen Beach, which is just so awesome, but really not accessible other than by Harry B. Allen staircase when it's low tide. And certainly not if you're carrying those large canoes.
Well, and also, one thing you didn't mention is having to find parking. So part of the thing with doing a SUP is you have to be able to park close enough. because you
And
have to
pump it up and
carry
whatnot,
it
yeah.
Or pump it or whatever.
So I really, the point of this agenda item is to let the community know that this dialogue has started to happen with me, and I wanted to just throw it out for discussion to see if we should do something. I think previous committees have talked about potential access points on different places. If you scroll down, Christina. Yeah, so here's some folks. This is the corner of Beach and Main. There's like a decent quote unquote beach here at low tide. I'm also aware, and from the ARC, that this is another area where I think Tiburon and Belvedere may possibly jointly be working on improving the road. There's another spot, I think, at the end of Peninsula. There's one more picture of someone with a canoe, I think. This is on Christmas Eve. They're contemplating something, but
How to get back over the wall.
exactly. So on my own personal take, I've often wondered oh, it'd be great to come in here for open water swimming practice or something. And I think people just hop over the fence or something right here. This, to me, I know along Beach Road, at least part of it by China Cabin is designated open space. I've always thought with some of this project, it might be neat to have a little opening or something. Not the sort of floating SUP platform that you might find in Strawberry, which is awesome, but I think providing some sort of cut-through access could be interesting. That said, not to go too deep on that, I wanted to see if there's any discussion about this. Is this something that maybe an outcome of this could be a small working group? Someone on the committee could explore this, chat with the Tiburon folks, see if Belvedere wanted to do anything. I don't know what their funding situation looks like for this, but they do have a large budget. Maybe if there were a collaboration, that could be something that a working group might explore. Hey, if we were going to build a cut through or something and it required some construction work, maybe there's a collaboration there. I don't really know. And that's why I wanted to bring it as your chair to say this is a topic that's come up.
I would be willing to, serve as some sort of liaison, as an exploratory. I think it is complex. It's a complex issue.
Okay.
Very complex issue. So I certainly think, though, that it would be valuable for Belvedere to be part of a conversation.
Yeah.
Around, this complex issue. So if you are looking for, what you're requesting is someone willing to be a part of that conversation with Tiburon, I would be happy to.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Yeah, I really want, my personal view is earnest conversation and exploration really to be how we're interacting with people and feedback. And I think that's the nature of this. Any comments over here or?
Well,
yeah.
I would say one other thing, just because people have asked me, sort of adjacent to this, just because what Tiburon is doing is very exciting, sort of their bigger plan, and they've been doing all sorts of things. So people have asked me about Belvedere and what we're doing, et cetera. So I also think in general to be opening, maybe both for the SUP and whatever else there is, I think it's important because we are very very close-knit community and sharing and we'll share all of these assets. So whether it's this particular one or anything else, I think having that joint dialogue with our neighbors is really important.
I think that's great. Yeah. And I do want, maybe I want to ask Tony about whether or not this has come up or how it's come up in the past as it relates to maybe some of the road improvements Was there discussion previously about this that you want to share with the committee?
Well, yeah, so it has come up in the committee before. Former chair Jenna Watson brought it up in a similar way to this. And at the time, the committee decided that they didn't want to look further into the topic. Other times that it's come up in city committees have been when the seawall project there've been multiple committees that looked at that over the years, and I believe that at one point there was the section along Beach Road had quite a few improvements that were proposed, and one of them was access to the beach over here. Another one I think was a platform near China Cabin, and I don't know how the discussions went, but by the end of the sort of the review period, those were removed from the scope of work.
I think given that this working group, if we could just do a little fact finding on what the historic dialogue was, that would be another thing to explore. Any comments from anyone else in committee on this topic? I am genuinely curious people's interest or support level, even if there are no comments.
Does Tiburon have a subcommittee, or is it kind of just their?
I think there is a subcommittee or working group.
Yeah.
Their chair is Chuck Hornbrook, and I think that there's someone, Mike, and possibly someone named Leslie. I should know their names, but I would be able to put whoever is working on this in touch with the Tiburon people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will leave you with one probably insane idea, but I think part of the public space behind the old Tiburon Tommy's Blue Luna, that beach is public, isn't it?
So there is a public shore sign. This is on the Tiburon list that they're looking into. And I think the Corinthian Yacht Club may have some sort of access control to what goes on there, but that's definitely on their list. And I think that could be interesting to look at.
I would, if you're ever, that's the partner, because
Yeah.
Corinthian owns that dilapidated dock that's floating there. And it's like all of those things, they're there to hold a place.
Yeah.
But I've never seen budgetary items to work on something
That's
like that.
it's an interesting
So
idea.
it might be something, and you've got a big parking lot across the street.
Yeah.
It's public in downtown, so.
Not a crazy idea. Okay. Any comment from,
Yes,
oh,
I have one.
Jane?
So I had a friend from Tiburon call me about this as well. And I was talking to her, and there's at Blackie's Pasture parking lot, all where they're redoing the marsh area there is a beach there. And it's actually called Greenwood Beach, like Greenwood Beach Road. And so I mentioned that to her, and she said, really, that's ideal because there's lots of parking. It's unpaid. I mean, it's free parking. You can park much closer there, and you're not crossing streets like you would have to for Corinthian, and you're not being impacted by any other kind of traffic or anything like that. It's just right at the end of that whole area is actually a beach. So that could be something people could question.
I think that I agree. That's an amazing spot. I think the concern that had been raised is that's a wildlife sanctuary.
Oh, okay.
For
The whole
5
thing is.
So it's
oh,
basically from that cool sanctuary
Yeah,
building, like
yeah.
one of the original
Right.
houses on the peninsula.
That was the building Joni Beacons was talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. From there to Belvedere for
Oh,
5 months a year,
okay.
you can't access.
Oh, that's the one. Oh.
So it's
okay.
that whole,
Got it,
whole
got it,
perfect
got it.
area.
Okay.
And
It
maybe,
goes, it's basically an angle
Right,
off
right,
of
right.
West Shore Road, and it goes kind
Yeah.
of
Right.
out. It's kind of a big thing, but I think, we don't need to solve for it.
yeah,
But that's the same concern that the San Rafael Avenue,
yeah. Because
thing.
Bramble Beach would be great too. Bramble Beach is apparently the official name for the gateway to Belvedere, where you've been moving the poop bags. Yeah.
Oh, Bramble Beach.
Yeah.
Okay.
great.
It does. Yeah, it does. It does. I think this working group could look into all these and come up with our own suggestions on this.
And a lot of the ones that you're talking about are actually in Tiburon, so we
Yeah.
would just be participating part of the conversation, but I
Yeah.
think, again, it's certainly
Well,
worth being.
I'm curious, when Tiburon reached out, was that because they'd identified their top sites as Belvedere sites? Or was it, hey, we just want to integrate you into things that we're doing in our town?
They have a map of different dots around the Tiburon Peninsula, many on Tiburon, many on Richardson's Bay, and some in Belvedere, and they wanted to know what the status was about some of those.
Very
And
cool.
yeah,
Love the outreach.
anything on Zoom on this?
There are no comments, no raised hands on
Okay.
Zoom.
Marika, I appreciate you volunteering to lead a working group. I personally would love if someone else could help as well, mainly because Marika is already staffed on
I'm
something.
happy to
Okay.
help on this.
Would you mind taking lead on this? And then
Happy to.
Marika, you would be on the working group? Okay, great. Well, I think that is a good proposal. Let's see if there are any motions to proceed with this as a working group. Any motions to proceed with committee member Sherm leading a working group with Marika Bergstrom on exploring a sub access point and conversing with the Tiburon Parks Commission on that?
I'll move.
Any seconds?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, fantastic. I look forward to your report in our next meeting. Okay, great. Future items. Does anyone have anything that they've encountered on their various travails that they'd like to add to the agenda for future things? And it's okay if no.
I had more a question, but we talked at I believe the last live meeting about the waves in the playground. And I wasn't sure if there was any outcome of that discussion or if we were going to bring that back up as, the reason I ask is I've seen a few people fall on them recently. So it sparked the thought.
I think that'd be great. We had that presentation from someone on your team, Tony, also about the sunshade and maybe adjusting that. And I feel like we didn't really hear an update on that if it happened.
Yep. There's a few playground items actually that we could probably agendize.
And the benches. Yeah. So let's do a playground update
Yep.
in the next meeting. Thanks, John.
I had an item.
Okay.
Which is just, I would love at the next meeting, one of the things that, Tony, you brought up in our discussions was about the change in sort of the budgeting process and how that's going to be moving forward and what the budget is and stuff. Since our last meeting, of course, you presented to the city council and the budget is going through. I think it will be finalized in July. So I was hoping at our next one, we could have a report by someone, whether it's, I don't know, it's Jane or whomever, to educate all of us on the status of the budget and what we, are charged with helping, explore and manage. I think it would be very educational to know actually what it is for this year and also just to understand how it all works.
I think that's great.
Adding on to that, the annual report to City Council will be coming up in January or February at the council meeting in January or February. So our next meeting is probably the time to start kind of looking at any drafts and deciding on priorities and proposals, which would feed into the budget conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
That brings me to one other question I have, which is we did miss a meeting, right? We've missed a meeting.
Yeah, we missed the Q1
We
meeting.
missed the Q1 meeting. And so I just was wondering, is there a reason or should we be thinking, we can't even seem to schedule the September one yet, but just was wondering if, especially given that last year it was quite congested, was my recollection.
Yeah.
To understand what we wanted to do in the report, get the report done, get blah, 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 if we might consider making up that meeting during that sort of fall time in the run up to the annual report.
So you're suggesting 3 more meetings for the rest of the year of this, which I think,
Just say that, but that is.
well, that would be a grand total of 4. So I don't think it's that.
would be-
Yeah.
We would be achieving what is our.
I think we do need that because my experience writing the report was present a draft, get feedback, and then come back with the final version, which I do need at least 2 meetings for before the January. So I think that's a great idea.
We did November, because we had the special meetings. We did November and December last year.
Yeah.
So that we might make that happen. So that was my other point for today.
Do we want to do calendaring now, or can we do it over email in terms of upcoming meetings? Like, I feel like we should move the meeting in September so you can make it, Tony.
Yeah, we can Either or. I mean, if we do it by email, it gives people an opportunity to check their own calendars.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
Let's maybe try to commit to next week. We have locked in the 3 remaining meetings for the year. Okay.
Good.
Does anyone on Zoom have comments on or suggestions for future items, Christina?
It's not.
Okay. Like to move to the open forum. We did receive public comment from Mr. Tan. I think Jane, you responded that that comment could be directed to Planning Commission. Okay, so I want to acknowledge that. And then any topics from the committee for the open forum section? Looks like no. Okay. Are there anyone on Zoom want to speak during the open forum?
There is not.
Okay. With that, I move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Ah.
don't think the vote for the vote.
Yeah, that's so nice.